Hey lovely teachers! Today we're talking about my favourite part of my piano lessons. Okay, it's hard to say favourite because it's hard to say favourite for anything. Does anyone else have that problem? But this is one of the best parts of my teaching. Possibly my very favourite thing. And that is when I get to teach buddy time. So, a little bit of backstory and a little bit of information so you understand what's going on. I teach primarily in a buddy lesson format. That's a format that I coined the term for as far as I'm aware, so you might not have heard it before. It means where I have solo time with a student, so one-on-one for 30 minutes, and then with another student as well, or several students as well, for another 30 minutes. So they have 30 minutes one-on-one and 30 minutes in a small group, like 2 to 4 students. And doing that buddy time is one of the best parts of my job. Like, it is so fun. And once you get used to it, it's so easy to do. It doesn't have to be a huge struggle. When there's new buddies working together, or especially very young students, at first, yes, it can take quite a lot of work and quite a lot of energy. But once they're up and running, those buddy lessons are so fun to do, and my students learn so much during that time. It was actually a few years ago. So I run a small multi-teacher studio. I have like 2 or 3 other teachers working here at a time. And several years ago, the schedule worked out that I just had very few of those buddy slots because I would have the solo time with a student and then the other teacher happened to be taking the buddy time and then I was taking another solo lesson. Kind of sounds complicated, and honestly it kind of is complicated to schedule, but that's the way it works out. For that year, I really didn't have that many buddy pairings. And I realized how much I missed it. I was still seeing all those students that I had been seeing in my one-on-one lessons with them, but there was something missing for me if I didn't get to connect with at least some of them in the buddy lesson as well. So, what I want to do is give you 3 concrete examples of what we did during that buddy time last week as I'm recording this. So this is just a snapshot in time, just a sense of what that lesson looks like or what goes into that lesson plan for 3 different groups who happen to be in buddy lessons together. This doesn't mean this is all we ever do or that it reflects the whole entirety of what buddy lessons are, but it does give you a sense of what this can be like. Example number 1 is a pair that I have, and one of them is 5 years old and the other is 7 years old. That's about the biggest gap I would ever have in a buddy lesson pairing. I prefer to keep them really within a year of each other if I can. 2 years is sort of the maximum, and 5 to 7 is a pretty big developmental difference normally. However, this 7-year-old needs to go quite a bit slower, and the 5-year-old has a lot of support with their practice at home. So it is working out to be not quite a level pairing because I don't need that for buddy lessons since they have their solo lesson as well to work on individual skills. It is working out that they're a good fit for each other. So the first thing I've been doing every week with these students is a marching warm-up. Just marching, and they have to follow my actions, marching at first, and then I tap my shoulders or I tap my head, and they're supposed to follow and do what I do in time with the beat. For the music, I use one of the songs that they're learning. One of them is in My First Piano Adventures Book A, and the other one is in My First Piano Adventures Book B. So they're a pretty good match, and I can just mix and match and use one of their pieces for that warm-up time. Now look, this is real talk. I'm not going to lie to you here and pretend everything goes incredibly smoothly in my lessons all the time. And this part of their lesson does not go smoothly. Because the 7-year-old, part of the reason why he is moving a little bit slower in some areas, he's actually super bright, but he has some coordination challenges. And he doesn't want to do anything that involves movement. That's the truth. I know it. I don't think he knows I know it, but that's the truth. However, doing that in the buddy lesson time encourages him to get involved because it's not just me and him. There is another student as well, so there's kind of a bit more of an expectation of participation that students just have because they're in school with others and they're used to that kind of environment where when everybody's doing something, you kind of have to just do it at least a little bit. Not with everything, of course, that's not a lesson for life, but for things like this, I think there is a bit of maybe useful peer pressure that happens in a small group environment like that. So we warm up they participate or semi-participate in that, but they both really need to develop a sense of beat and being able to move in time with the beat. After that, last week we did some rhythm vocab cards. So these are cards that I have that have 1 bar of rhythm on every card. We're using level 1 in their lessons because they're beginners, and that set includes various different note values in simple time in 4/4. And so I have them pick a card. One of them picks a card, the other one picks a card, one of them picks a card, the other one picks a card. So we have 4 cards. We lay them face up between us. So we're all sitting on the floor in a circle and we lay them face up facing them. And then we clap all of them. Simple. We clap and say the rhythm. We do that a couple of times and then I ask them to do it by themselves, like with each other, but not with me. I do lots of different rhythm games with these cards, but last week happened to be a week where we were just doing a straightforward rhythm clapping exercise to get more used to those rhythm patterns. Next, we did some solfa singing. So if you're keeping track, we're only like 5 minutes into the buddy lesson, which is 30 minutes long. So next we did some solfa singing just for like 1 minute. I pointed to the posters on the back of my door. So I have just do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and then again. So that there's 2 octaves on the back of my door, just posters just lined up vertically. And I just point to them and we sing together. Sometimes I just use hand signs, but this week I was using the posters just for variety. That's just something I do. So I'll point to do and re and mi and, include some skips that I know they can do, but be kind of conscious of how difficult I'm making the singing patterns, and we all sing together. Then we review our posture and piano setup using Steve the Stickler. So Steve the Stickler is my little lobster toy. He is the one that checks posture in my studio with beginner students. So the students, one by one, they'll sit up at the piano, have their hands in their lap and their feet on the footstool, because they're both too small to have their feet on the floor. And they'll raise their hand to the keys, making a nice rounded hand shape, and then put them back on their lap. They're not supposed to play anything during this time. And while they do it, Steve is checking. And if there's anything missing, like their wrist is too low, so Steve just taps his soft little lobster claw. He's a cuddly toy, right? So he just taps his soft little lobster claw under their wrist to nudge it up. Or he goes and sits on their shoulders to encourage them to relax their shoulders down. Stuff like that. And the other student who's not checking their posture, they will be standing up and helping Steve find what he needs to check. So they don't touch the other student. They don't intervene by like poking the other student's wrist if it's too low or anything like that. But they point out to Steve, oh, Steve, you need to look at this, or Steve, you need to look at that. And then we swap and the other one checks their posture. After we've done that posture setup, we do a animal technique exercise. At the moment, those 2 students are still just working on lion paw and Zachariah Zebra. So these are from Piano Safari 1. As I mentioned earlier, neither of them are in Piano Safari 1, but I still use those animal techniques with a lot of students. I tend to do all the animal techniques with almost most students. With a lot of students, I will also do the accompanying rope piece for each of those animals. And then after we've gone through all of that, if they need extra review, I'll go back over basically the same kind of technique issues, but with different exercises using my own technique Liftoff, which is in the Vibrant Music Teaching Library. For this one, we were doing the lion paw and they were doing the Zachariah Zebra in their solo lessons. So we did lion paw warm-ups playing D, talking about our heavy arm weight dropping into the key and all that good stuff that goes along with that technique. Check out the Piano Safari resources if you don't know what I'm talking about with the lion paw. At this stage, we're probably 10 maximum minutes into the lesson. Like, all of these things are very short activities. And then we get into something that takes a little bit longer. So at the moment, those 2 are working. Their primary theory focus for me is landmark notes right now. They both know the piano keys pretty well. They know their basic note values and things like that. So what I want them to really, really solidly know right now is landmark notes. So I take out my floor staff. It's a blanket that I made myself, but you can also get a printed one if you don't want to make one in the Colourful Keys shop if you're ever looking for one. So I lay that out on the floor. It's just a big version of the grand staff. And then I have my foam circles with C, F, and G on them. And the students have to, as quick as they can, put those in the correct spot for all the landmark notes. So they do that as fast as they can. It still takes them like 2 minutes each to do that, but it's really useful review. And when one of them is doing it, the other one is watching, pointing out maybe where the note needs to move slightly and learning from that. After we've done that review of the landmark notes and we have them all laid out on the floor staff, I get them to play them on the piano. I think that's really important because if we just do these things in isolation, students get octave disorientation, right? They just think a C is any C. They don't get the logic of the grand staff. So I make sure that I then point to one, or I usually have a Beanie Baby, like a little toy, point to one of them, and they need to go to the piano and play that one. Or sometimes I'll have one do that at one piano and one at the other piano. So if I point to middle C, they can't play bass C, it has to be middle C, right? Then we do a game to review landmark notes. So this time I was doing one that isn't out yet in the library. It is a simple landmark note memory game. It's coming out soon in Vibrant Music Teaching, and I made it for these students, in fact, because I needed an extra review for them that was big scale with the notes so that they could easily figure them out. Yeah, it's a simple matching game with like fun animal letters on one and like a C that looks like a cat, for example, and then you have to match that to the middle C card. But again, they're big scale. They're a quarter of an A4 page or a quarter of a letter sized page, so they're nice and big. We love memory games in that lesson. That's our favorite type of game, memory card games. We do play board games and we play different types, and we review landmark notes in various different ways because we're just trying to make sure that knowledge is really solid before they have to encounter it really on the staff. That will take 10-15 minutes, all of that together. You've got the landmark note review on the floor staff, and then some kind of landmark note game. And then at the end of the lesson, we do some improvising together. Sometimes I play an accompaniment and they both improvise. And sometimes I give one of them an accompaniment and one of them is the improviser. At this level, the improv options are two. They can say they want to play on the black keys or they want to play on the white keys. And then I just give them a very simple accompaniment pattern, if we're doing it that way, that they can play. And then they do it that way around and then swap around. So one of them is playing, for example, C and E together and holding for 4 beats and trying to stay in time with a drum beat we have going. And the other one is improvising in C major. And then they swap sides and one's the accompanist and the other one is the improviser again. This video is sponsored by Vibrant Music Teaching. Leave boredom, burnout and imposter syndrome behind with vibrantmusicteaching.com. Access a library of games, courses and tools to keep your students engaged and learning. Join a global community of music teachers and grow your skills with confidence. Sign up today and bring fresh energy to your lessons. So that is our first example. That is a lesson with a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old. We're now going to jump forward in age and to quite a different lesson. The next example is actually a group of 4. So I mentioned a little bit that sometimes we have not just 2 students together, but 4. The way that works is because we have multiple teachers. If you're doing buddy lessons and it's just you'll only have 2 students together. But because we have multiple teachers, it can work out with the schedule sometimes that we have up to 4 students in a buddy grouping. These 4 students are 12 to 13 years old. They're all girls and they're 12 to 13 years old. 3 of them are in the last year of primary school here and 1 is in the first year of secondary school here, the way that works out. They're all almost the same age, they get on really well and they're a really good group together. The first thing that we did this week was we listened quietly to a piece of music. This is something, it's not new, I'm bringing it back in, I'm feeling the need for it again, to have a piece of music that I listen to with almost all students at the start of the lesson all week and then change next week. And my plan is to do Baroque, classical, romantic, jazz, modern, and then repeat that pattern so that I'm kind of mixing up and including some jazz works in there because I think that's really important. This week was the first week when I'm thinking, we need to get back to this listening activity. And we listened to the Bach Cello Suite number 1. We didn't do anything during that time. They just sat quietly and listened. In some cases, I might have students up and moving. For these students, I felt like a quiet little listening time was going to fit with them really well, so that's what we did. And then afterwards, they just told me what they thought about it, anything they noticed. So we talked about, obviously, what instrument was it, what kind of mood did it have, what did it make you think of, stuff like that. I did this actually with a different group earlier in the week, and one of them said, oh, one of my favorite YouTubers uses that in his intro. So that's what it made me think of. This group didn't have any such connotations with it, but yeah, it was good to have a little chat about the music. I played that from my phone connected to my piano. My piano can connect with Bluetooth to act as a speaker. I like that because when I play it from my computer, they can often see the title. So they would have seen Cello Suite. You know, I asked them what instrument it is, and obviously they already know. So in this case, if you can do something like that where it's kind of hidden from them, I do think that's good to have as well. So that was just maybe 4 minutes at the start of the lesson. Piece is 2.5 minutes. We just said a few words about it together, discussed it a little bit. We reviewed chords, major chords. So what I did was I got out my handheld whiteboard. Yeah, just a separate whiteboard that I can hold, you know, not super big. I drew 4 pictures initially, and then I realized I'd missed one. But 4 pictures. I drew a snowman, an Oreo, a chocolate sandwich, a weirdo, by which I mean I just drew someone with crazy hair, kind of like mine. But I don't mind being called a weirdo. And then the 5th one that I had forgotten was like 3 scoops of chocolate ice cream. Now I say this, they were very rough drawings. And then I showed them to my students and said, okay, tell me what these things are. One of them got the Oreo before they even said snowman, which I thought was incredible because it was just, you know, a black circle with a white circle in between. Anyway, they got that one right away. And then the snowman, chocolate sandwich, I thought was a disgusting idea, but they understood what I was saying. The weirdo. And then I asked them, why am I showing you these things? What's this got to do with piano? Almost all of them. One of them is newer to our studio, so she won't have encountered this before, so she didn't have a chance of guessing, really. But almost all of them have met chords through these images before, but it has been probably a couple of years since we talked about them in that way. Maybe not quite, maybe 1.5 years, maybe something like that. I was trying to get them to remember or puzzle out what kind of pattern this has on the piano, and eventually we got there. And beside each of my drawings, we wrote which chords match those. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, the snowman is the white key major chord, so C, G, and F. And then you have the chocolate sandwich for the D, A, and E. So they're representing the colors they make on the piano just to help us remember the physical shape that we have to play. So we went through what those are and then played them on the piano. For this week, I had reserved the last half or slightly over half of the lesson, so like 15 to 20 minutes, for playing songs in a jam band style. So jam band is my optional extra class. It's free for my students. It's just once a week. It's half an hour. Students aged 12 and up, so this group of students and older, are able to come and play along with songs. We just use chord charts and we play along with the songs, and it's very low pressure. I've talked about it elsewhere before, so I won't go into all the details. But what I was doing with these students, none of them have ever attended that class. It's actually on a break right now. It's going to be coming back. So I'm kind of doing a bit of promotion of the class. It's free, okay? I'm not trying to sell these kids on anything, but I kind of am. I'm trying to sell them on the concept of playing like this by doing this in their buddy lessons for like 3 weeks, just because then we need to get back to like theory games and reviewing a lot of important stuff. We don't always have time to do this, but we're doing this as a bit of a jam band preview in the hopes that maybe some of them can then attend the class. We'll see if that works, but I'm doing that with a few of my buddy groups at the moment. So yeah, so we opened up the jam band folder and they picked a song. They picked the Office theme first, which is very funny because you open it up and I have it on a page with another song because it's just 4 chords. Like, that's it. So you just repeat them until it's over. And there's no words or anything like that. So we played through that and then we did Espresso, I think. Yeah, I'm blanking. Birds of a Feather and one more song. Fluorescent Adolescent, which is from when I was a teenager. So that's funny. We did 4 songs and then at the very end we had a couple of minutes left. So we also listened to the duets that they're all starting to work on. So they were starting those in their solo lessons. We were in the buddy lesson. We'll be working on them together from next week. So they're duets, it's not a 4-part ensemble. So they're just doubling up. Like 2 will be at one piano, primo and secondo, and 2 at the other piano, primo and secondo, and we'll play at the same time together. That's the goal. If we can get it all playing in time. That's always the goal with duets, obviously. But yeah, one of those duets is easier and one's a little bit more challenging, so that'll provide some interest. These students are not all at the same level. They're the same age, which is always my goal with buddy lessons. Same age, more important than level. Yeah, within a few levels of each other, there's sort of one who's quite a bit ahead, really, and then one a little bit behind her, and then 2 of them are around the same level. That means that the duets are going to be harder to learn for some than for others. That's okay with me. It takes more of the solo lesson time and more focus for some of them, but they are doable for them. Whereas for the others, it's more like, okay, play it a few times and we got it. And that's fine too, because they can then be busy doing other pieces in their solo lesson. So that was my second example with 4, 12 and 13-year-olds. Final example for you is 2 15-year-old students. So these students are a little bit more advanced, like they're solid intermediate students. They've done their grade 5 exam, if you know exam systems. They've got a pretty solid set of skills in a pretty broad range of disciplines. And they are the same level as each other, and they're actually friends outside of piano, which, is extra lovely, I have to say, but doesn't always work out like that. In most cases, most of my buddy students are only buddies in piano. We match them up so that they can get along and stuff, but it is extra fun that these 2 are friends outside piano. For their buddy lessons, since they're the same level, and since they are at a level where there's quite a lot of stuff to cover, right? And they still only have a solo 30-minute lesson. So 30 minutes buddy, 30 minutes solo. Primarily their solo time is just for repertoire. That's it. And then everything else fits in the buddy lesson, pretty much. At the start of their buddy lesson, we do all their technical warm-ups, and I do those with our backing tracks. That's great because we just jump right in, and there's no room for them to, like, if they don't know a scale, for example, there's no room for them to go back until they fix it. Because when we get into that, we really use a lot of time for scales. This is just, you get one shot and you try it, and then you're supposed to practice at home and get better the next week. But it's really just, you could almost call it a weekly test of all their technical exercises. So we did chords, minor chords around the circle of fifths, which they passed in this lesson. So they're finished that set and they've accomplished that on the challenge board. And then we did a newer chord challenge to them, which is a pattern of dominant 7th, 2 major chords. So they play C7, then F, F7, then B flat, and so on around the circle of fourths. After chords, so all of these are with the backing track. After chords, we did minor arpeggios. They're doing 2-octave minor arpeggios at the moment. And then we did major scales, also 2 octaves. I think they're ready for 3 octaves now, but I'm sort of saving that for next week. Try not to put too much pressure, because the most important one is the last one, which they're both so behind on. I don't know. I can't really tell you how this happened. It's just one of those things. I've just never managed to get harmonic minor scales to fully stick for them. And that's my biggest determination this year, is we have to sort this out. Like, you have to know minor scales. That's unacceptable at this level. I try not to let myself get too fixated on it, but we've gone through them a lot, and now we're just in the stage of reviewing them every week. And those are only 1 octave, which is why I'm saying they're behind, because really, 1 octave minor scales, they should be able to do more successfully by now. But hey, we can't be perfect, me or them. So we do harmonic minor scales last. So that's their technical warm-ups. That I actually clocked it this week. I happened to look at my watch exactly when we finished that, and it was 10 minutes of the lesson. And that's after them coming in and washing their hands and stuff. So that's not all playing, but after that, we did their 2 duets that they're working on right now. So they're working on Tango Jubilante, which is from Grand Duets for Piano by Melody Bober. They've started on that more recently, but we did a full playthrough of the whole thing. It's not a super challenging level for them. I do like the duets to be at a more accessible level so we can focus on playing together. And then their solo pieces will push them a little bit further. So we did a couple of run-throughs of that and realized what we had to work on in our solo lesson sort of thing, or in our practice. And then we did a duet version of The Archer by Taylor Swift, which is arranged by Jennifer Eklund. I got it on her site, fmsheetmusic.com, if you're looking for it. It's not an evenly leveled duet. There's like an intermediate secondo part and then a much easier primo part. So it's more effort for one than for the other, but it's working out. I'm hoping they're going to be able to do that one for our concert. They've been working on it kind of on and off for quite a while because other things kind of got in the way. So I'm hoping we're going to be able to do that for their concert in May. Still plenty of time for that. And then the last thing we did, just the final 5 minutes, we are also working in their buddy lesson on a Bach invention. Might sound weird because I said their solo lessons was for their rep, but I chose to add this in as a buddy lesson activity so that we can do it just in little bits and pieces. And my goal really is to make them not find Bach scary or annoying or get put off. They haven't done a lot of it so far, just little bits and pieces. They haven't done a lot of Bach or really Baroque in general. They've done little bits and pieces. So this is really let's really get into Bach, but let's do it in a way that is in bite-sized chunks over a long time, because I actually think that's going to be more palatable than really diving in and doing it all in one go, especially when it's not under pressure of like an exam or something that says you have to do a Baroque piece. It's just because. So I'm trying to make it as easy as possible. We're just doing the last section, so I split that up into sections. I think it's the last maybe 6 bars. I'd have to look at the piece to be sure of where I put in that section marker, but the last chunk that makes sense. They both played the right hand, they both played the left hand, so on 2 different pianos, and one played the right, one played the left, and we swapped. So they did it 4 times. And it's amazing what it will do, because with Bach or something like that that's very notey, it's very tempting for students to go faster when they know it and slower when they don't and just play with terrible rhythm. But when they're playing with each other, they can't do that because they won't play with the same terrible rhythm. So the only choice is to play with the correct rhythm, and that worked out really well. So I hope this gives you a sense of what buddy lessons are kind of like in my studio. It's just a little flavor, just 1 week in the life of 3 different sets of buddy students and what they got up to. We do have more information about buddy lessons and the logistics and the switch over, and if you want to really get into it, we've got some webinars inside Vibrant Music Teaching with webinar recordings there, and we also have some blog posts on our blog at Colourful Keys. As I said, it's my favorite part of my teaching in a lot of weeks, so maybe you'll consider giving it a go for yourself or just use some of these ideas in whatever format you prefer to teach in.